to go. So yeah, today's actually pretty exciting. The topic is going to be closing your first multifamily syndication, and we have Maple and RyDon here, who recently closed on a property in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think part of what I'm looking to get out of this is, for those of us who are also trying to follow that roadmap to getting involved in syndications on the operator side. It's good to see, others who, have gone through the journey and are successful doing it. And it's also not just about the how it's done, but just the preparation that goes into it before you even see that deal. So looking forward to learn about that, as well as some of the specifics of the deal itself. But again, it's more to learn and like anything else, you get inspired by seeing others that you have worked or spent time with do what it is that you're looking for. So what we'll do here, for those, I want to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity to introduce yourself. I usually read bios, but we don't want to do that with 4 people. That'd be a little boring. So let me start by bringing each one of you 4 on the stage and introducing yourself. I'll start first with Gonzalo Chernosky of Maple Capital Partners. Hi, Gonzalo. I'll let you introduce yourself and give a little bit of bio.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. First of all, for having us on. We're very excited to kind of tell our story of this current deal that we just recently excitingly closed on a little while ago. So a little quick about my background. I come from the civil engineering background, so I'm a licensed professional engineer. My education is basically civil engineering for highway infrastructure, buildings, things like that. I got into multifamily about 2.5 years ago. And basically, I'm the other half of Mark for Maple Capital Partners. I'm focusing more on the asset management side. So with my background of construction and engineering, it kind of fits me a little bit better with more of the contractor, the CapEx, budgeting, and things like that. So I take that role happily at Maple, and Mark shares the other side of the tasks that are related to real estate in general. So that's a little bit about my background, and thanks.
Excellent. So next up, and by the way, it's not a requisite that you have a Carolina connection, but it does help, of course. Gonzalo, who was originally living up in New Jersey, recently relocated out to outside of the Charlotte area. So he is now actually a South Carolina resident. But
yeah, so I was in New Jersey for about 17 years, and yeah, recently, just around 5.5 months, pretty much packed up my family, my kids, the dogs, everybody, and just moved down here to good old South Carolina, right outside Charlotte, about 15 minutes, and living the good old life, I guess, down here.
Excellent. All right, so next up, we'll introduce Mark Weisse, also of Maple Capital Partners.
Yeah, so first of all, hello, everybody. Honored to be here, and thanks for the introduction there, Jerry. As Gonzalo mentioned, I'm not going to belabor the point, but we partnered basically because of our complementary skill set. So whereas Gonzalo comes from engineering, I come from the financial market side of things, so managing portfolios for high net worth individuals. And that's kind of, I guess, leads into kind of what I bring to the table in terms of capital raising and underwriting. It's most of what I do for my W-2, which kind of translates into the syndication realm. Started off in residential, like a lot of people in multifamily. Met Gonzalo at one of these type events, partnered up and started scaling our portfolio. And pretty soon we were, had our eyes on the larger multifamily. So that's what we're up to now, and that's where we're at.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Mark. Next up, Ryan Sarkar from RyDon Asset Management.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, for having us on. My name is Ryan. I am actually based out of the Buffalo, New York area, so pretty far upstate and away from most everybody else. You'll notice Don, he's my dad, so we've been working together for about 6 or so years now. He's been in this for a lot longer than I have been, but I've been working at this for around 6 years, and this is our third deal closing together as a team. our first syndication. So I like to think that I bring to the table some of the underwriting type things, some of the technical aspects of it. I'm a mechanical engineer during the day, so I'm pretty used to looking at numbers, trying to crunch things together, see how that type of puzzle fits. So I like to look at those portions of the deal, as well as I actually enjoy this type of connections, marketing type thing. Although I don't do it nearly as much, I do like to. So yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And now next up, Don Sarkar from RyDon Asset Management.
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for having us on, and nice to meet all you guys and talk to you guys. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to work with this team. Obviously, I'm thrilled to work with my son too. It's not often that a lot of people get to work with one of their kids or one of their children in a field that they love, you know. So I've been doing real estate for probably about 25 years, and I have a background in plumbing and pipe fitting for quite a few decades. So I have a lot of experience with piping and water leakage, and you know, a lot of your basic stuff that you deal with every day with apartment houses. And since I did all the work myself, I'm kind of think about something else right now and kind of laughing about it, but since I did all the work myself the first probably 10-15 years, it was a pleasure to get a little bit more education, buy out of town, be able to have a manager, be able to manage the manager, and it's really great. But I do appreciate all the work that I did myself on these properties years ago. It just gives you a real good hands-on approach, and you kind of know where the contractors are coming from. Since if I've done all the work myself, it's like there's no surprises when a contractor calls. So I kind of like that. That's about it.
And of course, your connection to Carolinas is you have a property in Hickory, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we love the Carolinas.
That's awesome. Good. So, excited. Before we jump into the specific closing that you guys have, kind of want to, just learn a little bit more about the partnerships between the two groups, right? First, Mark and Gonzalo, you mentioned how you met at events like this. What's the time frame of that? How long ago did you meet? And then at what point did you decide, like, hey, we're going to work together?
Oh, you want me to take this?
I was just going to say, mention bigger pockets, because I think that's how I kind of sent you a text, right? Like what, 3 years ago or something?
Yeah. It's going to sound like a dating thing. We met online. We met on Bigger Pockets, and I think one of us had commented on one of the local forums there, and kind of mentioned that they're local, and so we decided to meet up and learn a little bit more about each other's backgrounds. We both were kind of just starting out. I think we both kind of had a couple of properties. He was doing flips, and me on the buy and hold side. And so we had a lot of the same goals when we first met. And like I mentioned before, complementary skill sets. And so we kind of hit it off, and we decided to start off at the time what we thought was big, but looking back, it was quite small in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's really good for anybody looking for partners, is start off small and really take your time. These are long-term relationships you're getting into. And just like marriage, it's really easy to get into, but a lot harder to get out of. So, take your time in vetting that person, really get to know them and what gets them excited, and, their personality, and whether or not that meshes with you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a great thing you brought that up, because I think on the meetup that William was at not too many days ago, this question was brought up, and it's very important, partnering with somebody that you trust, goals align, things like that. So starting on that small triplex that we did, so many years ago, was kind of like a good getting our feet wet first to see kind of each other worked out. We did kind of a burr on that. We held that property in Newark, New Jersey, but it kind of gave us a taste of how how we complement each other in different trades. And from that point on, it was like, okay, let's move now into a little bit bigger. It's hard to scale this stuff. Our ultimate goal is financial independence. helping people out, helping investors out, diversifying, mostly in multifamily real estate. So we then took that jump into attending some meetups on multifamily in New Jersey about 2 years ago. And from that point to now, it kind of prepared us, the networking that we did, the educational background and seminars that we kind of learned throughout the way, really set a foothold in closing this 32 unit and really gave us that confidence that said, okay, we're now ready. We know a lot. Let's do it. And that's how we kind of reached our goal.
So now, Ryan and Don, we obviously know how you met each other, but because give us the backstory of how you decided to, work together. Because obviously, as great as it sounds, father son, there's always, interesting dynamics and those type of relationships. So how did that come about where you decided to finally work and do this together?
Well, could I take this, Ryan?
Sure.
So one of the properties I had in Middletown, New York, where I pretty much did all the hands-on stuff, including leasing, Ryan would help me a lot with the apartment turns. So, he helped with that. And then he helped with the spreadsheets. And before you know it, I was getting tired of doing all this work at the property all the time. It was really not that bad. It was pretty much once a week, but it was every single week I had to do something. And then of course the spreadsheets and leasing and all that. And then we decided that we wanted to get more education, and the training that I paid for included a free person. So I said, hey, would you like to come? And then I'll let him take over from there.
Yeah. When I was helping with those turns, I think it was during college for me, but after that I had moved away across the country to Colorado. And after some time, he had asked me if we wanted to maybe pursue this a little bit more and actually really go for it. So we ended up going to essentially one of those guru boot camps, and it was all about buying in emerging markets, buying out of state. And I think we really took it to heart that this is something that we can do, that if all of these other people in the room are doing it with little to no experience and just learning from other people, learning from reading, from podcasts, all that kind of stuff, why can't we do the same? So with his experience and prior knowledge, actually running a smaller multi close by, we ended up taking that and really jumping from something close to us in New York State down to Hickory outside of Charlotte. So that was our first really cutting our teeth at out of state ownership, out of state working asset management, working with the property manager, multiple property managers on that property, and really learning how to run something that you're not boots on the ground and trusting who you do have on the ground. So in terms of our relationship, it's been good. We've worked pretty well. I do think our skills complement each other.
Sure.
I'm a little more on the tech side. He's a little more on the hands-on side. And I guess the funniest part about it is when we're talking all the time, constantly through texts and calls, but it's pretty much only real estate.
That's great. That's awesome. So, what we'll do, we'll jump into, I'm going to actually bring up the on my screen here. If you guys can see can you see the offering?
Yep.
We see it on our end.
Okay, great. So here's the property here, 32 unit in Louisville, Kentucky. And why don't we start with you, Mark, give a little bit about, after you had the opportunity to, put the LOI, go after this property. At what point did you decide to reach out and work with another group, another partnership?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was fairly early on that we knew that we were going to have to bring in somebody else. So just taking a step back, as Gonzalo mentioned earlier, this was really kind of the culmination of 2 years specifically focused on multifamily in terms of education and hands-on experience. We had co-sponsored on a couple of deals with a mentor at the time, and that really gave us the confidence to be able to go out and strike out on our own as far as making offers on properties. So we had a couple of false starts actually about a year prior to this. We learned a ton through those. So I would say, when you're going through tough times, as we're all bound to do in building this business, it's just, take a step back and take the long view and try to view it from the lens of what can I learn from this experience. So all of those lessons kind of went into this acquisition. Now, back to your question of when did we know that we were going to need a helping hand? It was really the capital raise, as well as kind of the out-of-state nature of this asset, that kind of told us that we needed to bring in somebody that was a little bit more experienced in managing out of state. We had the fortune of meeting Don. I don't think we had met Ryan in person at that point, but we had met Don, I think a year prior, going to some of these meetups in person back when that was a thing. And, had known a little bit about his story and felt really confident and really good about that we would mesh well in terms of our skill set. And so we, ran the deal past them, said, hey, is this the kind of asset that you would care on? We know that this is not your target market of the Carolinas, but we can, get you comfortable with the market. Do you like the deal itself? And that's kind of how we started the relationship.
Awesome. So I guess, Ryan, I'll direct this at you. Really quickly, 32 units. What was the price, the closing price on this one?
$2,475,000.
Okay, and the total raise was how much?
Approximately 1.1.
Okay. So now, obviously, Mark, you know Gonzalo, but you never worked before. So now they reach out to you, I guess, what is some of the exciting, things that you think about, as well as some of the concerns that, working with a different group?
So we had, like Mark just mentioned, I had actually never met either Mark or Gonzalo in person. It was my dad that had met them at a meetup. So it was interesting getting this email from them. I mean, we get, every once in a while, somebody that we've met does say, hey, would you mind taking a look at this for us? And, most people in this business, almost everybody that you meet, are willing to help throw a hand out and see what they can do to help somebody else. So of course, like, sure, let's underwrite it. Let's see what they've got here. And after underwriting quite a bit over the past couple of years, you don't always see properties that come up with numbers that you want to see. So it was pretty refreshing to see that. So we were definitely excited when they had found something. And I don't think it was right away that he said, at least I don't quite remember. I don't think it was the first email or two where he's like, are you guys interested in this? It was more just, hey, can you guys take a look at this? See what you think. What can you add to this? What would you say should be different? What do you like about the underwriting that I've done so far? What has to be adjusted in terms of management, in terms of CapEx, turns, everything else? What can be changed? How can we scrutinize this more and make sure that it's underwritten properly?
Right.
So I think overall, I was, just trying to be helpful at the time. I didn't expect much to come of it. And then over the coming weeks, when we actually continued to move forward with them, and something came of it where they had mentioned, do you want to hop on a call and talk about this more and really see where it goes? It was definitely exciting. I was skeptical of it actually getting as far as it did, but happy to see what happened.
Can you guys see the screen here? I'm sharing the executive summary.
Yep.
Yep.
So, I'll give a little bit of my own prior, I guess, knowledge of knowing, you guys before this. And I'll direct this question to Gonzalo. I look at this and the colors and Mark and Gonzalo Maple put out a newsletter, and you've been doing that, for over a year. And I think one thing I want to make sure to stress is like how much work you two have done before this opportunity came, whether it's newsletters, is getting things ready, due diligence and checklists and things like that. You want to just give a little bit of insight of how that helped when this opportunity came.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned before, this is not like we just kind of woke up, and the next morning and kind of this deal fell on our lap, right? It really took this long to really network with the folks. This deal came through from one of our network contacts. So throughout that process, we developed that relationship with that person. We kept in contact with that person. And throughout this whole entire time, we were also, educating ourselves, searching for deals. Our actual target market is Nashville, Tennessee. So that's kind of like the area that we focused on. We took a couple of trips there, met brokers, visited properties, submitted LOIs to Nashville, and then interesting enough, a deal popped up in Louisville, not too far, a very similar market, it's a southern market, very similar style of property. So when it did come to us, we kind of was like, all right, very interesting. Let's start investigating Louisville a little more. We actually took a trip out there before we really sent out the LOI and got accepted. We wanted to kind of tour the property. We really loved that it was a townhome style property, which for us, it was very desirable, just seeing how COVID has kind of impacted people as far as their own private entrances, a little more privacy. So once it did fall in our lap, we were very interested with the deal. We did invest a lot of time up front to get to know the market. And I'm glad we did, because at the end of the day, we were able to share that information with Ryan and Don as far as our visit, what we saw out there. And we got very excited with this property from day one, from our first visit out there. So
if I can just add one thing as far as looking at this deal, like I mentioned earlier, we kind of looked at a few different target markets. We had a few, like I said before, false starts. So we started off looking much closer to home in kind of Eastern Pennsylvania. And that was our first out of state experience of building a team and looking at deals and things like that. And then we looked at Nashville, and Nashville, as everybody knows, it makes all these top lists. So it gets a lot of attention. There's a really big audience for that market, as with some other Southeastern markets. But all of the skills that we had to put to use in evaluating Louisville came from, building a team locally in those other markets, putting property managers through kind of our vetting process, looking at different submarkets, doing mystery shopping. All of these were things that we didn't just, come up with. These were things that we learned from actually doing them and applying them in other markets.
great point. Yeah.
So I'll put this next one out to Don. Don, you mentioned, vast experience that you have in the industry. A lot of it, obviously, early on, for most of it, doing it yourself. You got Ryan on. You guys are working together. Now, moving up into a larger size property like this, you're working with another group. I guess, how did you guys do as far as managing the process of not overlapping, or how did you guys communicate with each other, and how did that work out?
So it's been great working with this team, with Mark and Gonzalo. It really everyone has a different skill set, and it's just we lay out different tasks for each other, and we just kind of work together. And I got to tell you too, in reference to a question you brought up earlier, Ryan and I needed to have partners as well. It's a team sport. We could not do it by ourselves. We were basically creating equity, but we weren't doing it fast enough. And that's how we went from a 16 unit down in Hickory to a 32 unit. But it took years. Took 3.5 years to create that equity to get into a bigger property. So, partnering up was awesome for us, and, being able to divide up tasks and keep on them is great. It's working out well.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just to dive a little deeper into how we kind of did that, is we did look at our skill sets initially, but we did a lot of overlap because we wanted to make sure that we were, as you mentioned, and this was our first syndication. So not only was our money on the line, but a lot of other people's money was on the line, or is on the line. So we actually did take a lot of extra time, and multiple of us went through many of the same tasks just to make sure that somebody didn't miss something, especially during the underwriting phase. At this point, we have kind of segmented everything off a little bit, CapEx and turns and accounting, all those types of things, everything that goes into asset management, working with the project, working with the property manager. And another one of our team members who's actually on here had brought up the idea of using Asana, Miguel. So that's been what we've been using for a couple weeks now. But prior to that, we were just going through email and phone call and text and just saying, okay, who's going to take this week? Who's going to take this next week? and just making sure everything got done. We had, Excel checklist, to-do list. Mark was up on top of the Excel list the entire time. It was
Yeah.
just checklists upon checklists, making sure that nothing got missed.
Yeah, it's a great point. The technology actually was going to be one of my questions, because I know from even using the drone in your videos, and you guys did a great job of doing that. I don't know if Miguel's on; he can definitely jump on if he wants to chat at any point. For anybody else, while I'll do another round of questions, you feel free to drop in the chat. I know Tom just asked about how you guys built your investor database. Mark responded by starting off as friends and family. I think that's probably a common, denominator for anybody. And then as times goes on, your strategy and your exposure to other people will build up your database. So I'll look for any questions. I'll give, I have a few myself, but Mark, I'll start with you. As the process, right? You're now under contract. You guys are working together. Now it's like get this across. Whatever it is, you're out of due diligence. You're moving forward to the closing line. This whole process, you've prepared. You've been reading. You're studying. Like, what did you find was easier than expected and harder than expected?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think on the easier side, I really thought that capital raising was going to be more of a bear. But honestly, all of the work that we had done up until that point, talking to friends and family, talking to the people that we have built this relationship with over the past few years here, as we've kind of put it out there that we're doing multifamily, that's sort of, built to this point where we're now coming to them, and we don't have to go through the whole talk track of what is multifamily, why this is such an attractive asset class or anything like that. It's more of, okay, this is the conversation that we had prior, and this was the type of opportunity that you expressed interest in, and this, this deal meets that need. So I would say, I wish I had started earlier, frankly, as far as documenting or kind of putting out in the world what we were up to. But that being said, it's never too early to start, whether you're starting on the residential side, whatever kind of platform you're on, social media wise, just put it out there. This is what I'm working on. This is how I'm spending my weekend, that kind of thing. Because that all builds credibility, that all kind of builds confidence from people who may be watching. But so that was easier than I thought it would be, the capital raising, just being that we had a ton of conversations coming up to this point. And a lot of people knew that this deal was kind of coming by the time that we had it under contract. As far as tougher than what we expected, I think dealing with a lender was a little bit tougher. And I would say more so than that, dealing with legal entities, just because, the nature of syndication, there are multiple entities involved. And so you just really want to make sure that you work with your syndication attorney and understand what's going to be required of you. Because while, typically you'll have 30 days to do your due diligence and then 30 days to close, it's kind of like, I guess, a safe number to go with. That sounds like a long time. It's really not, to do all the things that you have to do prior to closing. So you want to have as much figured out ahead of time with some of your team members, like the syndication attorney, so that when you do have to go and create the bank account, you have to structure the entities. You have all of that laid out for you.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. So, now move a little bit ahead, obviously, as you're ticking a clock, you're moving towards closing, but, and the underwriting's already gone through, you've done due diligence, creating a budget. Gonzalo, put this question to you, talk about some of the things that for CapEx, for example, the variables that go into that. How did you put together your budget on this deal?
Yeah, I definitely want to bring Don on the stage if he wants to chime in, because I did work very closely with Don. Me and him are kind of working side by side and kind of in the initial stages trying to develop some sort of capital expenditure budgets, what we needed to kind of set aside in order to kind of hit the ground running once we closed. So how much were the exterior improvements? What was that? What did that look like? Same thing with the interiors. What are we looking at for upgrades to kind of hit those rent numbers that we're projecting? that's heavily depending on whatever return we provide to the investors, those rent bumps were really important. So we wanted to make sure we had a very solid number. So Don and I worked together with definitely getting multiple quotes for pricing, getting very high level pricing. Doesn't mean necessarily that we're gonna go with these contractors, but we really need to get an idea of what prices were in the Louisville market, because obviously we're from different parts of the East Coast, and pricing for different type of repairs might vary from definitely Newark, New Jersey to Louisville. So we needed to get ourselves familiar with what type of expenses were associated with, you know, painting the exterior of the buildings, things like replacing gutters and roofing, it was needed. So we got quotes. We determined the due diligence phase really gave us an understanding of what the condition of the property was. So we can go in there and be like, all right, we need to do this, 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 and this. Let's get quotes. And then let's start really building our CapEx budget and see where we land. Do we need this? Do we not need this? So it was a very great process that we went through, and everybody really had their input. Miguel had input on different things.